becomes...
His name's Phil.
And his name is Tim.
And this is Tim and Phil Talk About Games.
A podcast where Tim and myself get together and talk about games we've recently played and discuss topics in the world of gaming.
Today on the podcast, we're venturing into the wild and woolly world of mobile games to check up on how the industry is travelling.
We'll discuss phones versus devices, the massively multiplayer mobile space, and what happens when traditional companies turn to cell phone sales. Cool. All right. Yeah, we are here once again to talk about games and that sort of thing. We kind of chose mobile games for our topic today because we haven't really talked about other platforms other than PC for quite a while now. And some of the feedback we got from people that have started listening to our podcast recently was that we haven't been talking about other platforms. So we thought that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah. Also, because I've been playing an inordinate amount of mobile phone games recently. For no really explicable reason.
Yeah, no, it's they're certainly a massive presence in the gaming world, so certainly going to give them their time to shine today. Before we start, obviously we'll just do some quick shout-outs and talk a little bit about games that we've been playing, but I have a feeling that the game that we've both been playing the most will be very similar, so we won't spend too much time on that. So quick shout-outs, we got one Facebook like, which put us to 90, which is a nice round number. Yeah.
10 more to 100.
Yeah, exactly. Oof, crazy times. Unfortunately, we couldn't see who it was because obviously their privacy settings have prevented that from happening, which is good. You know, people want to be
so long
private.
As Facebook knows who it is.
Yeah, and they do.
That's all that's really important to Facebook.
Oh,
so long
yes,
as Facebook knows everything, it doesn't really matter what you know.
And we also got some YouTube subscriptions, which is an interesting and novel thing. We don't know what we did to get those because I don't think we'd actually uploaded anything in the time that in between geting them. But do you want to do the shout-outs?
So thank you to Tom Schuth, Savion Vanderpool, and William Burns.
Awesome. Burns. Yeah, so Burns, baby, Burns. So thanks, guys, for subscribing. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of our content.
And if you don't, let us know and say why. Yeah,
exactly. Let us know what we can do different. Today, before we get into the mobile topic, what we've been playing, I don't know about you, Tim. Actually, I do know about you. We've both been playing Pillars of Eternity. Yeah! Really, really solid CRPG from Obsidian. I think I'm only about 10 hours in. I think, Tim, you're substantially more.
Steam tells me 30
Oh, there you go.
Hours.
That's,
and yet, not that far ahead of you in terms of progress.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that says.
Well, I think, I don't know. It's one of those games where you focus on different things depending on what you feel like doing, basically. So
winning.
I
feel like winning, Phil.
I feel like becoming the most powerful thing alive, yeah. But yeah, it's a very solid CRPG. It's the background art is really, really good. I mean, it's by no means
good. It's terrible, but it's good. Like, it's meant to be really, like, it has almost like, I remember playing Diablo 1 and 2 way back in the day, and thinking, wow, this looks so real, it could almost be clay. Yeah. And I look at this now, and I'm like, wow, this looks so retro, it could almost be clay.
It's certainly a throwback to the earlier days.
But I love it. I love it. It's great. So that really, everything shines too much. Like, it's got that glistening look, which I think is fantastic. Like, someone's left their figurines out in the rain. It looks really good. The lighting effects are fantastic. That really, that old isometric feel as well.
Yes.
It looks and plays great. What's your character?
I have a Cypher, which is one of the kind of world-specific characters that they've got. I mean, obviously the game is based loosely on D&D rules. I think you said D&D 3.5.
Yeah, most of these games sort of sit in the sort of 3.0, 3.5 edition.
Around about there, yeah. So the Cypher's a new character class, which is someone that can see people's souls and manipulate those to do either kind of damage or quite a lot of status effects, actually, and like psychological kind of attacks on people. So yeah, they're pretty cool. They were a little bit OP in pre-patch. They had a couple of skills.
Oh, you got nerfed, did you?
I got nerfed, yes. Mind Blades, which was the staple attack of a Cypher, basically got nerfed into the ground, so that's fine. I didn't need it anyway. But the rest of my party, I think I've got a wizard, a ranger with a wolf, a chanter, which is another...
I think you'll find it's actually a fox.
Oh, fox, wolf, whatever. A chanter...
Yeah, it's a big difference,
cleric.
Phil.
Yeah, it's a dog-looking thing. I don't know, it looks like plasticine, so it could be anything. A cleric and a just regular old fighter. So my team's going through pretty well. It's
nice.
It's pretty good. Yeah. So, but yeah. So that's pretty much what we've been playing. I think it's one of those games that we are going to have to do a deep dive into. I feel like we're going to have to pull back the review style podcast to actually talk about Pillars, because it's a solid game. Like, it's got a lot to talk about. There's a lot happening in it. Especially in the way the story is being presented. It's the fact that it feels old and yet feels refreshing is, I don't know what that says about the current state of the industry, but it's the type of story it's telling, I feel is really worth talking about. I think it's got some really interesting hooks there. So, yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Well, we'll probably do that in the future. I think. I think it'd be a worthy game to spend an hour talking about. So yeah, keep an eye out or an ear out for that in the future.
Yeah. And on top of that,
what's that?
I've been playing also
a crap load of mobile games.
So we were talking about this, or I was talking about this mostly, and Phil was listening, going, "Oh, mobile games. That's interesting."
Oh yeah.
Thinking, that's disgusting.
Well, it's funny because when we had this conversation, I was like, I don't really play mobile games. And then you were like, yes, you do. You play blah, blah, blah. Like, you've got your NDS, you play stuff on your phone. You know, occasionally you play stuff on your tablet. Like, mobile gaming is an interesting term because people don't necessarily...
It's getting more and more nebulous.
Yeah.
In that it encompasses more things.
Yeah, well, as the definition of nebulous may suggest.
Some of the questions we were sort of posing to ourselves was, you know, does a Nintendo DS count as a mobile game? Yeah, of course it does. The Vita but then once you start getting into the iPads and now that we've got like the Microsoft Surface, which is a fully fledged PC computer, like people are playing League of Legends as if it were a mobile game. Like, that's a completely different world that I'm just not familiar with.
Yeah.
But I, like you, once thought that, the gross world of Android games and iOS games was not something I was at all interested in. But what happened was I came home from Sydney, where I'd been living for the past 3.5, 4 years. And I came home to find a vast number of my family members playing really gross brain training games. Like your Lumosity or the other one.
Well, the one that was on DS back in the day was the particular professor. No, I don't think it was Mr. Miyagi, but it was a particular professor's like brain training game that kind of started them off, actually. Yeah. But even simple stuff like Sudoku games and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play Sudoku because you think it's a fun thing to do, then that's fine. Play Sudoku. I'm not going to stop you playing, canasta or bridge or whatever it is that you like doing in your downtime.
Solitaire, yeah.
But if you're doing it because you've been told that it can keep your brain active, the simple fact of the matter is that it's been demonstrably shown that is not true. And this is one of the things that sort of really infuriated me when I started to see people that I care about playing these games, because they thought, oh, well, maybe it'll stave off Alzheimer's, or maybe it'll stave off the inevitable dementia. So, first of all, we're going to post in the comments, the description part, a couple of links to some great papers, one of which comes from Nature, And like we've said in previous episodes, nature's kind of a big deal in the science world. You don't get published in Nature just willy-nilly. Another one was in Cell, which is another big biology magazine.
Pretty biology magazine.
So these are big studies that have come out, and some of them are these kind of studies where they take lots and lots of other studies, put them together and review them, what we sometimes call a review paper. So they have a lot of data points to work from, and the overwhelming response from these studies was that brain training games don't do dick. People who had played 8 hours of Lumosity were shown to have less performance or equal performance to people who had just watched National Geographic videos for a couple of hours. People who had been playing these brain training games were shown to have either no improvement at all or a very slight amount of improvement that was kind of within statistical uncertainty, statistical error. Then what happened was a couple of groups got together and said, well, what about non-brain training games? What about actual other games? And that's where the results started to get super interesting. And that's where we saw things like, for example, playing 2 hours of Halo a night resulted in far higher cognition levels over the course of 3 weeks. And no one would normally say, yeah, you want to really exercise your brain? You want to get good and smart and strong with your head muscle? Go play Halo. And no one has ever said that in the history of gaming until just now. Or at least into this study. And so, yeah, these studies started coming out with showing things that saying, for example, if you play Lumosity or Dr. Miyamoto, whatever it is, brain training games, what you can quite often do is add up lists of two numbers very quickly, or say the color of objects very quickly, which is often what these brain training games get you to do. The skills that you're acquiring and not actually applicable to anything else in the real world. But then these other studies started to come through and said that people who play FPS games, it was shown that they could track more objects on the road at a time than people who didn't. People who play RPG games were able to remember more items on a shopping list and their locations in a supermarket. And these are directly applicable skills. And so what I started doing was saying, okay, look, I can't bear to see you playing these brain training games. I definitely can't bear you to play anything that was made by King or, any of these Match 3, Candy Crush, anything with Saga on it that doesn't begin with the banner. These are not things you should be playing. So I said, don't play this. Let's find something for your mobile phone, for your iPad, for your whatever you've got that is not terrible. It's not, worse than Hitler. And so the first one I thought of was let's just find something quick and easy. Plants vs. Zombies. Right? Yeah. Very low level of entry. It's a very basic tower defense style game, and tower defense style games we've shown it can be quite addictive. That can be a lot of fun. And they're pretty easy at a low level of gameplay. Next thing I know, I've got my mother and father both heavily addicted to Plants vs. Zombies, to the point where I actually have to tell them to put their phones down at the dinner table. Which, that's a whole new level of weird for me. But then this last week, I find my mother teaching her mother to play Plants vs. Zombies. And at the next sort of weekly family catch-up, my grandmother's saying to me, I was playing that zombies game and it was very difficult, a lot of fun, but I couldn't get enough suns to plant the plants that I wanted. I'm like, yes, Gran, that's called gameplay. But it was a really sort of bizarre and interesting concept. And then, just by rote of having to sort of keep on top of the things that they're playing, I found myself starting to play Plants vs. Zombies. Next thing I know, I've gone for 100% completion of the puzzles pages, and I've powered through the story mode twice. So, obviously there is some serious addiction issue with these games. But also, it was just kind of refreshing to sit down and just play something a little bit more casual on the mobile phone. Which, in turn, got me to thinking about this topic and wanted to see what we could talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, so I guess the genesis of the discussion was the fact that we kind of started, because Tim was searching out all these games for his mum and dad and gran to play, is kind of like it was actually kind of hard I suppose, to find something other than your standard Plants vs Zombies at the moment, because the hotness at the moment is just kind of these really massively
gross
multiplayer, well, kind
massively
of
gross.
Massively gross, yeah. I mean, Clash of, you do immediately think of stuff like Clash of Clans, where you are participating in basically a global war of who can pay the most money to win imaginary battles, essentially.
I wonder how much money Angry Neeson paid.
I don't know. Angry Neeson. Angry Neeson 52. 53? 52.
52, something like that.
Something like that. But yeah, it kind of got us to questioning, like, well, there's a lot of these games out there. What does it take to make a good mobile game? And what is involved in a mobile game, and why is it that mobile games all kind of feel very similar, and all kind of feel very I don't know, there is just a feeling to them, kind of thing.
There is definitely a style. Like, it's almost mobile game, and this is why we were kind of saying it, like, mobile game is kind of a genre at the moment unto itself. Like, FPS is a genre. There are these mechanics that you see in these mobile games all the time that you seem to be almost inextricable from the device itself. And so when you see something that does something a little bit different, like, for example, the Frozen Synapse, Sword and Sorcery was another fantastic mobile game that doesn't feel like a mobile game. Leviathan Warships, which was another fantastic mobile game. Why are these games so rare?
Well, I mean, it's down to the actual, the form of the gaming device itself, right? I mean, you have mobile phones themselves have a limitation. In that they don't have a controller, so you can't have really complicated
they are the controller, really.
They are the control scheme, but what I mean by that is that you don't have something that you can, have multiple button presses for. So, a console game, you've got your certain amount of buttons and you can press those and they correspond to movements on the screen. PC, obviously, you got your keyboard and mouse, so that involves being able to do even more with the input that you have, because you can have, mice that have 1 million keys on them and all that kind of stuff. So, you see the people that have set up all the macros for something like World of Warcraft, and it looks like they're operating some kind of nuclear reactor with the amount of stuff they have on their screen and on their mouse and on their keyboard, the amount of stuff that they can actually get the game to do.
The irony being that nuclear reactors are actually comparatively quite simple.
Exactly. Compared to a World of Warcraft player, max level doing a raid, it's probably pretty simple. But with a mobile phone, all you have at most of the time is touch. So you have specific parts of the screen that you can touch. You've got gestures, but compared to an actual dedicated controller device that you would plug into a console or a PC, it is far more limited in what you can do easily and what you can do that can be communicated to the player without a lot of hassle. I mean, you could set up, buttons and arrows that you can press to move different characters and, really complicated control schemes. But the kind of people that are going to, want to play a mobile game or play a game on their mobile phone are generally the kind of people that do want very simple control schemes. And that also comes from the fact that with a mobile game, with a mobile phone, the environment in which you're playing it in comes into play. Like, you're not sitting down for a long game session with your mobile phone. You would be doing that with a PC or a console, or even a dedicated handheld gaming device like an NDS. But you're not necessarily doing it with a mobile phone. You kind of want something that you can dip into and dip out of and not have to worry about learning these control schemes and learning these really complicated mechanical systems. You want something that you can tap the screen like once every few seconds and have it do things. Mobile games come from a very specific place because of how they are received and how the device is actually handled in the real world. And that's a really interesting thing of form defining what a game actually comes out as.
And the fact that a lot of these mobile phone games come from companies who have built the game specifically to sell units. Like, they have...
as in...
The devs themselves have said, right, we've seen that mobile game X has made an just gross amount of money. Like, billions of dollars have come out of this game. Yeah. I want in on that. I want some of that pie. So they have tried to emulate it. And so I think as well, you get a lot of that sort of samey feel because people are seeing what is working and going the super safe route. trying to cash in on the cash.
Yeah, which you do obviously see in other platforms. That's the word. You do actually see that in other platforms. Obviously, like back in the day when FPSs were new, like you had Doom, you had Hexen, you had Rise of the Triads, you had
absolutely.
Quake. Like you had all these clones that came along, but the difference between those and mobile gaming, I feel, is the fact that mobile gaming is predominantly a free market where practically anybody can publish a game. And so you get this huge kind of iterative evolution of a particular genre of game until it reaches the point where it just can't be optimized any further for a particular type of game. Like the Match 3s and the Clash of Clans type games. Those things are at the top of their game. Like they have been iterated on thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times with all these players.
Tight.
Exactly. They get patched and iterated on like practically every day, these kind of ideas where someone's come out with something new that's kind of interesting and someone else will see it and take it and, evolve it more. Like it's such a free market and such a huge amount of kind of forced evolution of these games to what their, I guess, ultimate form is. Whereas something like a PC or a console, I mean, PC's getting there. Not to dip too much into the PC discussion because we're trying to focus on mobile games, but PC is getting a lot more open with stuff like Unity 5, the Unreal Engine, stuff like your basic editors like Cocos and Game Maker and that kind of thing.
Because it's been so successful on the phones.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
I think we have that. I think we have them
thousands of people are making games on iPads.
Yeah.
Why
want people
are they
to do that on
making
PC?
thousands of games with Unity on PC? Yeah.
Exactly,
So why not?
Yeah, so we kind of have mobile to thank for that, that push to free up the actual sources of developing games.
So then you got a question as well that where do games like, for example, your Sword and Sorcery come from? And why aren't we seeing more of those when those games were very, very popular? And I think the answer pretty much there is just exposure, right? It's very easy for a Match 3 game to get to the top of the downloaded list on iTunes Store.
I wouldn't say easy, but a simple free game like that is far more likely to.
Yeah, because once it starts to get a bit of momentum, someone posts on Facebook, "Hey, I've been playing this Match 3 game," everyone goes, "Oh, I played 30 seconds of that and I enjoyed it," and then it's very quick. There's the level of entry is so low that it's almost impossible to not the barrier. Yeah. It's almost impossible.
No, yeah. Sorry, I was just using an alternate word.
Okay, you were correcting me.
I wasn't correcting you, sorry.
Lies, Phill. But to get into a game like Sword and Sorcery, you have to actually, that's a case where you do have to sit down with your tablet or your mobile phone and say, alright, well, I'm going to be playing this game for the next 20 minutes, half hour, whatever.
To an hour, yeah.
To an hour,
but that's the question, is that should those games exist on mobile? And I would argue, really, I don't think they should, unless you're talking about a dedicated gaming device like an NDS or a Vita or an Ouya, if you manage to get one of those. Ouya. I would argue that they don't really seem to suit that space.
I don't think you could say that they shouldn't be there.
No.
Any game has a right
I'm just saying,
there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you shouldn't develop those kind of games for the mobile market, and obviously there have been examples of success. I mean, Sword and Sorcery,
Sword and Sorcery was super popular.
It was, and it was super polished, and it made up for that with the fact that it actually used other things like social media. So you had the tweets and that kind of stuff built into the game when you actually accomplished stuff, and the fact that it was more than just it played with time as well. So it had different things that you could achieve only on specific days, and so you would log in, at the full moon to complete different objectives and that kind of stuff. So it was, I would say that it's an exception because it did include these kind of more. If it was just a standard adventure game, I think it would have sunk without a trace. But because it had the social media interaction, it had the thing where it played with time, because people always have their mobile phones on them, and that's another thing that we wanted to talk about is the fact that people always have their mobile phones on them. So it kind of it
almost becomes an input.
Well, yeah, I mean, time becomes an input to the game. I mean, if you've played any of the games that use the, energy resource kind of management.
That's an example
kind
of it done badly, though.
I don't know. Say that to the people that have lined their pockets with impatient folk that want
Yeah,
the
but I
energy
would also
now.
say it's successful, but it is not a good mechanic, nor does it make a good game. Okay,
yeah,
it makes
I
a
would
good
agree. I would
mechanic from
agree.
a capitalist point of view.
If you're a capitalist pig dog, then yes.
But if you're a Marxist pig dog, I don't... Who are the Marxists in Animal Farm? I can never remember.
I don't know.
I'm sure someone in the comments will point it out to us. Be like, "Oh, you idiots!"
The rest of the horse, wasn't the horse like it was 100% like socialist?
Yeah, God, it's been so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, not the point. The point is that forcing you to wait before you can play the next part of the game is a terrible thing to do as a mechanic for the game. Your game should never say, "Stop, go do something else.
Stop playing me."
Yeah. Or give me money.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it doesn't translate well to other platforms. Like, if you had to do that on a PC game, like if you were halfway through playing...
God, could you imagine?
Assassin's Creed Black Flag or something like that, and it was like, you've run out of dodges. You have to wait half an hour to get
run out
another
of
dodge.
wind.
Yeah, something like that. Like, it
Pay
doesn't
$5
translate.
to fill your sails with wind.
But the thing is, because it's on a mobile phone, and because you can very easily go, oh, okay, I've run out of energy, I'll just put this away and stop using my phone as a gaming device. Like, it doesn't... It only costs in the sense that if you're really getting into it, obviously you're going to want to keep playing, and that's what they market towards. But I just think that there is certainly something to be said about the fact that mobile games are delivered on a device that you have with you at all times, and creating a game that takes advantage of that, like Sword and Sorcery did, where you pull out, you notice that it's a full moon, or you notice that it's a half moon, or whatever the other achievements were, and you pull it out and go, oh, okay, I'm just going to play and get this little achievement. That's kind of cool, and it's something that a mobile game offers that you can't get with a desktop PC, and you kind of can't really even get with a tablet, because it's not as socially acceptable yet. I think it is pretty socially acceptable, but not quite as socially acceptable as pulling out a mobile phone to pull out your tablet and start playing a game like at dinner time or something like that. That's a little bit weird still, I think. Whereas if it's something as small as a mobile phone and accepted as being something that you're going to constantly get messages through, whatever social media and messaging and calls that you get, it's slightly more socially acceptable. So it kind of offers that. It offers that aspect of always being there, and you can design games around that. And I think that's one of the massive benefits of mobile games and the mobile market. So, yeah.
Yes.
That's a rant of mine.
So I guess the other thing is as well is that, so a lot of these games we talk about in terms of mobiles, we think mobile phone. Because, first
that's
of all,
the biggest market.
Mobile, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
But so now we're starting to see... So we're seeing that the world of tablets start to drop off as well. If you look at sales at the moment, and I only do this because of the morbid fact that I used to be in sales for these pieces of crap. And so I can't stop looking at sales statistics. The sales for tablets is dropping off really rapidly.
Really?
So,
I wasn't aware of that.
It is. And so one has to ask, is gaming on mobile phones versus gaming on tablets one of the reasons that tablets aren't really doing so well at the moment? And could gaming be something that brings the sales of tablets back up? But then you compare it as well to something like, for example, the Microsoft Surface, which is really, it's not a tablet, it's a computer. You can install... I've seen people playing League of Legends at like the cafe, like at the local coffee store. Which is nuts to me. Like, that's taking mobile gaming to a whole different level that I'm just not.
But you could have done that with a laptop before.
You
could have done that with a laptop.
For some reason, it seems socially acceptable to take a tablet somewhere, and yet not so much to take a laptop, unless you've got the white glowing apple of sainthood or whatever. And in which case, you can go into any Starbucks you like and meet up with a dozen of your kin. But yeah, the concept of playing a game on a laptop as well is still something that, in my mind, is not really all that feasible because of the short battery life as well. Certainly the laptops that I've owned, if you wanted to play a game on them, you had to be plugged in.
Also, you had to have some serious ventilation underneath.
Yeah, and you had to be okay with everyone looking at you as your computer goes...
like a pigeon on crack.
Yeah, it's not it's not subtle, right?
No.
Like, whereas playing games on a mobile, you could be texting. No one knows what you're doing.
No.
Usually.
But you're taking your next turn in Fallen London or, any of those games.
So the line for me is starting to blur as tablets start to get more and more powerful, or at least crappy tablets are falling away and powerful tablets are starting to become more the norm. It's not just the Surface either. There's a bunch. Lenovo do a full x86 processor tablet. Asus do one as well. They're coming out from all the different manufacturers, and one of the big draws on them is that you can game on them. But then the question is, could you not always game on them? Like, where does this weird delineation come from?
Well, the thing is obviously the most popular tablet in the world is the iPad, right? And people do play games on iPads, absolutely. But it's all pretty much the same games as the mobile market. So, I don't know. I still think that it's possible for people to do that, and I know plenty of people that play, Hearthstone on their iPad. Like, probably the biggest contributor to Hearthstone's success was being able to play it, anywhere kind of thing. Like, it's not on mobile yet, but having it on the tablet when tablets were rising, I think was a big contributor, because it is such a polished card game.
Which is funny
mechanic.
as well, because Magic the Gathering tried to do it and never really took off. And that game already had a huge player base.
But I think, I think there are other factors contributing to that. I think there was the fact that Magic is such a very complicated game compared to Hearthstone. I think the art also would have made a big difference to it. I think
maybe.
I think there's a lot of things that Blizzard. Again, getting slightly off topic here, but Blizzard is very good at taking established genres and smoothing them out and polishing them until they shine like diamonds, basically. And that's what they did with Hearthstone, and that's why it's such a popular game, because
I like
really
how you
did.
Never say good game. That's why it's really popular.
It is.
There
are a lot of things.
I don't like it.
There are a lot of things wrong with Hearthstone. About the only time that I actually enjoy playing Hearthstone is when you play the arena mode, and you get kind of put on a level playing field with other people because you're drafting your deck. And it's exactly the same way as I like playing Magic the Gathering, is I like starting on a completely level playing field with people. Maybe the only difference that you have is a little bit of knowledge about the cards, but you start off at a level playing field, you draft your cards, and then you play. Like, it doesn't require you to have a whole, bank account's worth of cards to start with. Anyway, getting totally off topic, but I think that tablets in general, they're not quite in either camp kind of thing. Like, because they're so useful for a bunch of different things. Like, we were at Louise's, my girlfriend's dad's place today, and he was looking up, he found it really useful to have the tablet there when he was looking up tiles for their new house, because he could kind of compare them to the tiles that he had sitting in front of him.
Right, hold it up, right?
He had. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can actually hold it up in front of it. Like, they're useful for different things, and I don't think gaming on tablets really ever. We might be totally wrong on this, but the feeling that I have on it is that gaming on tablets never really took off in the same way that gaming on mobiles or gaming on PCs or consoles kind of took off.
So then the other side of this coin was also the fact that we were talking about gaming on these devices. We were having a look at the kind of games you play. If you'd asked me last year, do I game on mobile, I would have said no. But then I realised we even did an episode on Ingress, which is technically a mobile game. It's quite literally on your mobile phone. And it was a game that I sunk, hours and hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours into over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's a game that it requires you to actually... Speaking of mobiles, it's a game that requires you to go out and physically do things. So that's like the augmented reality game side of things. Are we going to start seeing a lot more of this? And I hope so, because, for example, with Ingress, I have had a lot of fun playing it. Like, it is a really cool little game. It requires you to dedicate time and energy and resources to playing it if you want to drive to a portal-rich area. But it's a really interesting concept, and maybe we could even start seeing some of these games like Sword and Sorcery incorporates time, why couldn't a game incorporate space as well? Now that every phone has GPS, or at least knows location from your, 4G positioning system with the actual phone, like the towers.
Yeah, exactly.
Triangulation, that's the word.
But that's the thing, is that you're kind of hitting an odd time at the moment, because people are they're starting to get a little bit more careful with their data. Not obviously, we're at kind of the lower end of the scale. Like, people, they're still not that careful with their data, but there's more coverage in the media nowadays of laws that are coming through affecting privacy and that kind of stuff. So,
especially in the EU.
Especially in the EU. But games like that are going to have to make sure that they are 100% watertight on how they're using your location data and all that kind of stuff in order for people to really take them up. And they have to give you a compelling reason. Like, Ingress is really popular because it's really polished. Whereas other games that may have, similarly interesting mechanics of how you interact with other people in your social sphere and how you interact with the world around you, like through GPS coordinates and all that kind of stuff, maybe they don't have the level of polish and they're being left behind. So I think the same rules apply to mobile games that are trying to do interesting things with how you carry the mobile, right? Because as we said before, the whole advantage of mobile games is the fact that you have it on you at all times. So games that are going to try and do something with that still need to maintain that same evolution, like that same level of evolution that you see with games like Clash of Clans and not necessarily Flappy Bird, but
how do we forget Flappy Bird?
I know, yeah. Well, Flappy Bird was interesting because it was so completely unpolished. Like, it was such a basic game, but it inspired a lot of clones and inspired a lot of way more polished clones. So, games that are going to try and do something interesting, there's that barrier of entry in terms of getting into the market, because the market has evolved so quickly and so fast to be so rewarding to players that play it, and so I want to say psychologically rewarding. Like, they've pushed it to the point where it's so smooth. They've done what Blizzard has done internally, except they've done it through just thousands of games going through. And so the problem with games that are trying to do something interesting with mobile devices and how we interact with them is that they need to hit exactly the same level of polish that all these other games to even get noticed. Yeah. So it's going to be it's way harder to come into that market trying to do something interesting, because you also have to have the budget to make sure that the interesting thing that you're doing looks amazing and has a perfect UI and has a perfect user interaction profile. So I think that's maybe why we're not seeing as many games that do really interesting things with the time aspect of having a mobile in your pocket all the time, and the space aspect of, affecting where you are. And also, I guess, the social aspect as well.
The social aspect is a really big part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing is, so when you've got games like Ingress, for example, that incorporate the real world into it, and then on the other side of that coin, we're also seeing, so first of all, the huge success of the Oculus Rift, with the Kickstarter success, I should say. It hasn't actually been released yet, so as far as success, we're not really sure. But then you've also got the Project Morpheus, which is Sony's version of the virtual reality thing. I've forgotten the name of the Valve one. I want to say the Vive.
Viva?
Is it the Vive or the Vive? Or the View? Or...
All I remember is it was a really crap name.
It was a terrible name. And being made by HTC, which I'm actually okay with, because they made some pretty cool phones. So, so now that we're seeing those kind of things reach sort of, they're not saturation, but they're certainly coming to the point where their cultural acceptance is there, right? People start to say, oh, well, virtual reality is a thing. I mean, Google Glass also really kind of started it.
Yeah, except that's kind of dropped off. I mean, I think that the thing with the VR headsets is it's kind of... That's become the, fringe technology, and then that kind of pushes everything else to kind of be normal. Yeah, it pushes everything else towards the center. Yeah. So, how long until we start seeing that being incorporated more into... I mean, first of all, mobile phones can't really power these games very effectively, although...
kind of can, because we've already seen that you can use a mobile phone as a VR headset if you've got the time, patience, and craft skills.
Google Cardboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, at what point do we start seeing that become more of a thing? At what point does mobile gaming really mean mobile gaming? Where you are being mobile as part of the game. And then that also, in my mind, sort of turns into the concept of mobiles not so much as the game themselves, but also as the tie-in to the game. At what point do we start having these nice, big, unified game worlds where it doesn't really matter what device you're logging in on, there's still something for you to do. So we've seen a lot of that recently with mobile tie-in games.
They've never been fantastic.
They've really not.
No
and this is the most frustrating thing. The two that I have personal interactive experience with are the Watch Dogs tie-in, which was called Watch Dogs CTOS. Conceptually, phenomenal. It was a really cool idea. It did not take off. It wasn't particularly well implemented. Essentially, the idea was that your phone was the... so Watch Dogs is your Grand Theft Auto style, sandbox game with cars. The CTOS allowed you to be security cameras and helicopters and other sort of the enemy type creatures in the game. It allowed you to play them on the mobile phone, which I thought was a really cool idea. Like I said, not particularly well implemented. Kind of fizzled out. I actually couldn't get it to work ever. It kept looking for games and then failing, or then I thought I was in a game and then it turns out I wasn't in a game. It was a nightmare. The other one I had experience with, was the Assassin's Creed Black Flag tie-in game, which was a really cool idea, because rather than saying, let's try and emulate the game experience on the phone, they said, let's take the effects you're having in the game on the PC/360/PS3, and let's have those influence the world on the mobile game. So what it was that the more influence you recruited in the game on the console or on the PC, you got those influence points and those ships that you recruited to go out and do little mini raids on the mobile phone with a completely different user interface, completely different everything. But it still kind of felt cool that you were doing something that felt like it was you were influencing the world. And then when you get back into the PC or the console version, your spoils from the mobile game actually come across, which was kind of nice. Similar things have been done for Battlefield 4, although I refuse to buy Battlefield 4, so I can't say personally how good or terrible it is. My mind is on terrible. Titanfall apparently had one. I didn't even know this.
I had no idea. I put a lot of hours into that game. I had
nearly 100 hours into Titanfall, and I had no idea that you could outfit your Titans and do all this other crazy stuff on your mobile phone. Call of Duty Ghosts had one. I didn't know about that, but I also didn't play Ghosts because... because Call of Duty. Lots of these games are starting to come out with these tie-in apps. One of the future ones that's hopefully coming out at some point, if it ever does, in the incarnation that they promised, is the Tom Clancy's The Division, which has been advertised at the last 3 E3s.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That game looks really cool, and the way that they sort of said that you could interact with the mobile phone version of that seems like it could be a really cool idea.
Yeah.
But I'm amazed that people haven't done this more often and saying, look, it is so easy to upload things that you do stats-wise from your computer game or console game onto a web server, which your mobile phone then also logs into, and then you can play a separate game in the same world on your mobile phone. I'm amazed that this just hasn't been done way more often. That, to me, would really sell mobile gaming to the, let's say, not casual PC gamer.
Yeah. I mean, throwing out a possible example is that, we've been playing a heap of Pillars of Eternity, right? And Pillars of Eternity is mostly a CRPG, and obviously you can't do that on a mobile game. But as part of the kick-funded stretch goals, they actually included essentially what is a mini-game in the game, where you acquire a stronghold not long after you start playing the game. And you use that stronghold to give yourself bonuses when you rest. You can hire extra adventurers if you upgrade it. And so that could very easily have been taken out of the main game and put into a mobile game that you could then, like, in real time, things take 10 hours to build in game time in the stronghold mechanic that you have in the game. But that could just as easily be 10 hours of real time on your mobile phone. And so you set the little thing to start building something, and then you have to do a little mini game of fighting off people that are coming to invade your keep or your stronghold.
Yeah, like that's placing your guys on different ramparts or walls, or saying put the archers here and the foot soldiers here, or just little things like that. It doesn't need to have the graphical fidelity or the fine-tuned controls of a PC game.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you would have to still include the stronghold mechanism in the game if you didn't want to do it with the mobile version. But, that's just an example of how you can take something that seemingly is a really hardcore PC experience and take some part out of it and put it onto a mobile and have people enjoying both types of gaming for when they can't be at their PC. Like, I'm enjoying Pillars of Eternity a heap because I actually have a whole full Easter long weekend to kind of sink a few hours into it each day. But from then on in, I'm only really going to get to play it once or twice a week to really sink my teeth into it.
Yeah.
So something like that, where I have something on my mobile that I can still interact with the game, and maybe I can read up on the lore. There's books in the little app or whatever that I can read up on, and because there's a lot of great writing in the game. So that would be something that I would be totally into, is just the ability to read all the lore that I've unlocked in the game. So yeah. Yeah. Just before we finish up, because we're heading towards the hour mark, we did also want to comment on, I know that everyone else has talked about it, but we also wanted to talk about it, is the fact that Nintendo is finally heading into the mobile market, and what that actually means, and why exactly they are partnering with someone, because Nintendo in general is a very, I suppose, solitary company. They tend not to follow trends, they tend not to, they have to really ratify people that are developing third-party software on their games. Like, there was the age-old Nintendo seal of approval that adorned games that they...
I miss that seal of approval.
I know, yeah. But yeah, so recently they announced that they're partnering with a games company called Dina, mobile games company called Dina. Apparently pronounced DNA, because why not? Yeah. But it's spelled D-E-N-A. Okay. DNA, anyway.
DNA.
But yeah, exactly. Really crappy name.
Please pick sensible names for your companies.
Yeah, we're going to make a games company. Make it something.
These
cool.
are the guys that gave us the Wii, so I guess,
You can't, yeah, it could have been way worse. But yeah, they've recently partnered with this games company to actually start bringing out mobile games. And that's a really interesting move because, as we said, Nintendo is generally pretty traditional when it comes to games. Like, they focus on, your $40 to $50, or I suppose $40 to $80 premium title, hugely polished, very, specifically made to sit down and experience or play with your friends, which is something they've been moving towards a lot more with Smash Brothers, Mario Party, Mario Kart. They're very friend friendly.
Yeah.
Does that even make sense? So yeah, I think it's really interesting that they moved into the mobile market. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think the reasoning is there? I mean, besides money, probably just money. It's
largely the money. I mean, we've often said, we've joked to each other like, "Oh man, can you imagine if they released Pokemon for iPhone?"
Yeah,
that would you're literally printing money at that point.
Or an Ingress, like Pokemon Ingress.
Oh, right. They've already got the IP, and this is what's killing me. They already have Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
Just make a virtual reality game where you go around the real world photographing Pokemon. Google did it. Google did it for an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So yeah, part of it is that. Part of it is, I think, there's a very different... I mean, this is another criticism Friendly criticism, I should point out as well. But another criticism that we got about the podcast was that we are very Western-centric, which is true because we're both white middle-class guys from first world country.
First world company. First world company. Oh God, words.
Right? Or Freudian slip. I can't tell which. But so one of the things that is difficult, I guess, for a company like Nintendo is that Japanese culture is very, very different when it comes to things like, for example, the mobile gaming scene.
Yeah.
So I think it was hard for Japan and Japanese companies. God, it's too late on a Sunday. It's hard for Japanese companies to just quickly adapt to the things that Western companies have been doing. Japan is notorious for being slow to adapt because they've got a lot of sort of this is how we do things behind a lot of their design choices, which is one of the reasons why we love their games so much, because we know exactly what we're going to get from them. Like it's not that it's it's bad or unoriginal. It's that they have a very defined sort of focus and a very defined idea of what this game is going to be. For a company like Nintendo to move to the mobile space, I think it's just really, really difficult for them. The fact that they don't know what the specs of the device are that are going to be playing their games. They're very, very big on like having the same experience no matter what. Like when you play a Nintendo game, this is how it's going to feel. It's going to feel like Nintendo, right? But if you've got a dozen different, iPhones, Android phones, bits and pieces, tablets, whatever, all playing this one game, all to varying degrees of success, that's difficult for a company like Nintendo to sort of come to grips with. And so I don't think, for example, we're not going to be seeing first-party big title games on mobile phones even now. Like, it's going to be tie-in games. It's going to be your Pokemon Snaps, your... I'm trying to think of the other one, the tie-in where you had the historical Japanese real-time strategy game. That was a lot of fun as well.
Dynasty Warriors?
Pokemon Conquest.
Oh, okay.
No, I was still on the Pokemon. Those are the kind of things I think you can expect to see, and possibly even just Pokemon like Pikachu themed match 3 games. To be quite honest.
Well, that's the thing is that I think it would be very hard, and you've seen this happen with Sony to a certain extent, in that they've brought out games for iOS. They've brought out
call it iOS. I like that better.
Whatever. Yours. They brought out old school games for their for the Apple operating system. They brought it out for I don't think they put it on the Google Store. I really don't. And they haven't really seen that many sales. I mean, the virtual store is another place that they've released old games. People buy them, but it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same as releasing a free-to-play mobile game with Nintendo IP that then takes off.
Yeah.
They kind of get like a solid initial sale base because of nostalgia, and then that's it. You're not going to get anything more from that game. Whereas I think with the help of something like Dina, I think they'll approach more the free-to-play market. Because people just don't buy premium games on mobiles.
No.
I mean, it's been shown time and time again that people just do not buy games that are even
$50.
Well, obviously they're not going to buy the games at $50, but even like $1, $2, $3, $4. The further up you go, the less and less likely it is.
And it's an exponential drop off too.
Oh, it's a very quick. It's like E squared.
Yeah,
like it's a really quick drop off. So I think they would never be able to approach that market with their sensibilities intact, and so they kind of needed this friend to get them in. It's like the friend that gets them into the party that they're not quite like cool enough to get into.
And just hangs around and says, "Hey, this is my friend. That's cool. I'll carry the conversation. Nintendo, you can tag along."
Yeah, exactly. You provide the money to get us into this party, and I'll get us in there, and you can make some friends and sell a shitload of games, and sell a heap of in-app purchases. So I think that's probably the reasoning why they partnered with someone like DNA to do it. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what actually comes out of them.
You know what, Phil? You're my real life DNA. Except
you.
I don't have any money, so...
Oh, you can pay me in friendship. It's fine. But yeah, I think it is going to be really, really interesting, especially if other companies start doing the same thing. So if an EA or a Ubisoft started actually bringing in these mobile companies that have the experience in releasing free-to-play models, instead of just contracting them out for one game, they actually say, right, we are investing in you long-term. You are going to carry all of our IP, and that is what you're going to do. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting.
It's certainly going to be an interesting time, and like I'm kind of glad that I've started playing mobile games because I think this is the time to, start watching out for what's going to be happening in that world.
For sure. All right, I think we've exhausted our knowledge of mobile games. We're certainly going to be playing a lot more of them in the future, that's for sure. I think there's some interesting stuff that people are doing with them.
The other one I wanted to quickly shout out as well was was Plague Incorporated, which is a fantastic mobile game. Sort of small game dev guy put it together. Really solid gameplay, a lot of fun to play. You essentially play as a disease, trying to wipe out all of humanity. So if you like The Walking Dead, it's like being able to play as a zombie virus, which I think is pretty cool. So that one is probably the one that sucked me into mobile gaming more than Plants vs. Zombies did.
For sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't really have a shout out for anything except maybe a couple of the random games that I've play tested for people over on the Game Maker subreddit. I think there's one called Cave Run Kids. If you have Google Play enabled phone, maybe check that one out. It's by a guy that I've talked to a lot on the subreddit, and it's actually pretty fun. It's like a dual control game, so you're actually controlling two characters at once, and you have to kind of keep track of both of them and avoid obstacles for both players. It's actually quite fun. It's pretty intense. So yeah, check that out. I guess that's my one shout out.
But a good one, a solid shout out.
It's fairly underdog. I want him to get up. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. As usual, you can find us on the web at www.timandphill.com. That's Phill with 2 L's. And on Facebook at facebook.com/timandphill. If you want to contact us directly, however, you can find Tim on Twitter at Dungeon Master. Add him as a friend on Steam as Ageotas, that's Ageotas, or at his website, which is CorsairsAnchorage.com.
And as always, you can find Phill on Twitter at ToothSoup. Add him as a friend on Steam as Flaxey, which is Flaxeh. Or you can find him at his regular website, which is toothsoup.com. Thanks for listening.
And happy gaming.